Mint Decavitator, one of the strongest weapons in Splatoon 3's current meta, commonly seen as the second best weapon behind S-Blast. It's the weapon that I fell in love with over Carbon Roller Deco, so I'd love to show you all why. I'll be going over many aspects of Mint, so use the timestamps to check out what you need the most. I made this video as a celebration for hitting 10,000 subscribers. Making guides is really hard, but I know you'll appreciate them. So I'll make a Splatana wiper guide at 25,000 subscribers. Enjoy the video. Mint Decavitator has one of the strongest amounts of damage per shot outside of one-shot weapons. Let's start with the 40 damage hitbox. The 40 damage hitbox combos with an almost endless amount of weapons, the most notable ones being S-Blast and Slosher, with the nicher weapons like 96 Deco appreciating how the damage combos. The most insane number is the 80 damage hitbox. It's easier to find weapons that can't combo with this 80 damage hitbox, like Nova's fall-off damage? Not only can this combo with basically everything, it combos with smaller damage outputs like almost every weapon's fall-off damage, bombs from all ranges, and it even kills players that have healed a little bit. It's a bit niche, but when players hide for a second to heal, Decavitator's damage is so high that you can catch a player before they heal back to full HP. If you don't have time to charge a charge slash, you can go for melee hits. They do 70 damage at close range and 30 damage if you only hit with the sword. Holding up on the left stick with the charge slash will make you dash slash, covering a great distance with your massive hitbox. Decavitator's large hitbox and great distance covered by its dash slash defines the weapon. Mint has a suction bomb as its sub-weapon. It can be used to stall choke points, objective, and combo with the Decavitator's giant 80 damage hitbox. There are more techniques that I use in combination with Mint's special weapon, Big Bubbler. Big Bubbler is a strong sustain tool that can be used to hold space with its large HP pool of 2400. Many weapons do higher damage to objects like Big Bubbler, so we'll talk about how we can make the weakness less prevalent in simple techniques. Mint Decavitator is one of the craziest weapons with its builds. While weapons like S-Blast have its builds figured out, Decav has some unreal builds. From your basic builds to your opening Gambit builds, I'll go through what these builds have in common first. Each build should have stealth jump. There are many things you can use which I'll show in simple techniques and advanced techniques, so I'll cut it short and sweet now. Keeping your super jump hidden is valuable to keeping you safe from players camping it with bombs and longer ranged weapons. Comeback is the most common headgear ability ran on this weapon. This gives 6 abilities for 20 seconds on respawn. Special charge up, swim speed up, run speed up, ink recovery up, ink saver main up, and ink saver sub up. Our two most important abilities are special charge up and swim speed up. The special charge up makes our big bubbler output higher on retake, and swim speed up makes our mobility much stronger. The abilities that help our ink tank do help our uptime and throwing more bombs on retake. Run speed up is probably the most useless part. Each build should have at least a sub of bomb defense, a sub of quick super jump, and a sub of ink resistance. Bomb defense to stop very common bomb combos. Quick super jump to make your super jumps more efficient. And ink resistance to get some leeway when touching enemy ink. Let's go through the builds I recommend. Toto, the best Mint player in the world, runs this build. It's currently my favorite build, giving high speed while giving you some help with suction bomb and big bubbler output. He also has a haunt build, sacrificing some bubbler output so you can equip haunt. This will help your retake too, since you'll be able to see some players on the map. A lesser known fact is that when you kill a haunted player, they'll get respawn punished, giving them a longer respawn time and losing more special. There are some common QR builds. I recommend using comeback and stealth jump when using them, and here are the builds that Dylan and Kyo both run. There are less common builds that run LDE and opening Gambit, but I still mainly use comeback due to how prevalent its benefits are. Mint Decavitator is so unbelievably broken that I believe you can run it on every stage and every map mode combo without it being bad. While every map is good for a Decavitator, some map modes are better than others. Let's start with Splat Zones. I'll be putting more focus on Splat Zones because it's most commonly ran in competitive. Every map is strong for Mint, so this is more of an opinionated list. I hope my reasoning helps you understand why. Urchin Underpass makes it easy to close the distance with its size and the ground being parallel to each slash. Mahi having infinite strong bubble spots and the 80 hitbox covering space easily with how flat the map is. Robo having the pit area being very strong, and Suction Bomb is an overpowered sub-weapon on this map. This is also one of the most powerful bubble spots in the entire game. Umami has very good sharking spots, with its flat ground making 80 damage hitboxes very strong. But the general vibe is you want stages that are flat, so you can have an easier time aiming, good places to shark, and maps where bubble is very strong. The reason that I put the 5 maps at the bottom where they are because Sturgeon's retake opportunities are off, Eeltail has a similar problem, Marlin's big bubbler spots are less broken than other stages in my opinion, Lumeria is a stage that prefers longer ranged weapons and weapons with AoE, Flounder is a bit strange since retaking while being below your opponent is very rough. I'll be showing some advanced techniques about Splat Zones that I highly recommend looking at in advanced techniques. Wow! Later in the video! For the rest of the modes, I'll just be throwing up a list and giving advice because many of these maps are just not relevant at all. Finding strong bubble spots and having Suction Bomb on defense makes Decavitator and its kit very powerful on tower control, especially when you find timings to put bubble very close to tower. I recommend keeping bubble off the tower because the time it lasts when it's on the tower is much less than a normal bubble. Rainmaker has felt a bit awkward for me on Mint, but Big Bubbler being used for checkpoints and to keep the opponents from pushing forward, to some crazy Suction Bomb spam and choke points to keep pushes from even happening, and once again, Decavitator is super broken. I have a lot less to say about Clan Blitz for Mint, but being able to shark effectively, go wide to give your team space, and having strong bubbles that can shift the tides of battle to your favor always help. Having a bubble to keep the push going is extremely strong. There are many simple techniques that I used often to give myself an edge on Decavitator, like charge slashing and dash slashing from cover, dash slashing from elevation, dash slashing backwards, things I do before popping Big Bubbler, and my general Big Bubbler positioning. The most common being my charge slashes and dash slashes starting from cover. Start your charge slash from behind a wall to keep yourself safe before going straight in for the kill. The most punishing thing about Decavitator is the long startup time, so being safe and not taking any damage while that time goes off really helps. Be wary though because Decavitator is extremely loud, so if you're waiting with a charge slash behind a wall, your opponents can hear it and react accordingly. Dash slashing from elevation is a very versatile tool. Changing the arc of your dash slash makes it very difficult for your opponents to kill you before you complete the dash slash. When charging a dash slash, you can move slowly and even jump. It becomes much more difficult and somewhat unreasonable at higher heights to aim it, but it's a tool that should be used very often. While I didn't make an entire section going through every dash slashes on this guide, because it was extremely hard to do on the Carbon guide and I hated it, I'm very sorry, KeenSaysGM made a small video going through dash slash spots, so go to their comments and force them to make a part 2, because they're also very smart. I love peer pressuring my friends with comments, hopefully Keen doesn't hear this part of the video. Dash slashing backwards is an extremely strong defensive tool to keep yourself safe. Many players are used to Decavitator's dash slashing in, so they may swim back preemptively. Dash slashing backwards gives your opponents something else to think about. They won't always be assuming you dash slash in. The other thing is many weapons can't even approach you when you're dash slashing backwards, because if you dash slash backwards and quickly turn around, you can put the 80 damage hitbox directly on your opponents if they chase you. A small tip before using Big Bubbler is to either slash once or throw a bomb. Slashing into Bubbler can give you a tiny bit more mobility than a normal slash. And bombing before the bubble lets you use your expensive suction bomb while having a full ink tank again because of your big bubbler. I'll talk about this more in advanced techniques. Big bubbler wants height. If you can give your bubble a little more height, it will live longer. It's because the top of the bubble is its weak point. So the height can make some weapons have a harder time reaching the top of it. A small but important matchup to note is when you fight teams with Tri-Strike and Booyah Bomb. You don't want to put your bubbles on objective points when you know your opponent has one of these specials. Their specials will have more value if they hit the bubble and the objective. Try going wide to give your opponent more things to worry about. It's important to find times to put bubble on objective if you notice the enemy team doesn't have one of these specials though. This is a small bit, but super jumping in Splatoon 3 is extremely important nowadays. Let's say we use it in our offense. When coolered, your super jumps are impossible to catch. Try using the D-pad to input super jumps to quickly leave a bad scenario. You can even use it offensively to instantly appear in your opponent's face, ready to dash slash in. Decavitator has some weird weapons. Decavitator has some weird matchups. Being a stronger weapon than everything except S-Blast, you would think that it would just destroy everything in its path. But it's a little strange. There are some things you should do against certain weapons that won't work against others. Against slower kill time weapons like Slosher, and even S-Blast without its direct, you can find timings to dash slash in to find a kill. However, it can be risky, since higher level players can bait the slash to punish you. Against shooters, I recommend the classic charge slash into normal slash. You outrange all these weapons, so spacing them out is recommended, especially since these weapons have faster kill times at equal ranges. This doesn't work against weapons that have more range than you, so I recommend trying to go on an off angle, which is essentially going to the side. It makes longer range weapons have to choose between shooting towards you or shooting towards your team. This gives you more opportunities to get in on them. It works better on longer range weapons because longer range weapons tend to be slower, so they have a harder time choosing between the targets. Decavitator is also one of the few weapons that can catch a dually roll on the way down, so try to time your charge flashes so you can catch them before they get away. Against sharking weapons, swimming in and squid rolling backwards in neutral helps to bait sharkers in, and dash slashing backwards into the 180 makes it very difficult for short range weapons to reach you. The last weird quirk of Decavitator, if you want to call it that, is something that my old main couldn't compare to. You can just do nothing and farm bubble. The passive value of Mint is very strong with suction bomb and bubble usage, so just chilling and getting your special to outpace your opponents can be strong. Throwing suction bombs constantly is a pretty broken strategy, but be careful because your opponents can recognize your passive play and start rushing you for it. I'm not gonna lie, I needed some help with the workload on this guide, and this small creator decided to help me out, so take it away, Chara.
Hi, I'm Chara, the guy who helped coach Omega on Mint. Before we get into some comp examples, let's look at the kind of things that you might want as a mid player. These will usually be weapons that either cover weaknesses or enhance a strength. These are the 6 main traits that I think you should keep in mind. Many weapons might cover multiple of these at the same time. First up, area of effect. Mint has even less of an ability to fight around ledges and corners than most other swords. Having a weapon that does really well fighting in those kind of angles can really help force the opponents into more favorable positions for you. Number 2, range. Mint, while having solid range, switches between melee and mid-range. Having an anchor weapon or some kind of other mid-range weapon can help offset that disadvantage and keep enemies up close. Number 3, a weapon that can fight on its super jump landing. With its wide hitbox and dash slash, Mint is one of the best weapons of the game at jumping in and immediately taking fights. Running other weapons that can play off this can enhance the strength of it, such as dualies with their dodge rolls or Brella's shields. Dualies are such a common option with this weapon because it also ties into mobility. Mint oftentimes can be a sluggish weapon, and does best when the enemies have less time to react to what you are doing. Highly mobile weapons like Zap, Dualie, and Mini have a good ability to pull attention and survive more, giving you a higher opportunity to strike. Number 5, Paint. Mint isn't bad at paint, it's actually quite good for its role, but you typically want at least one other weapon that actually wants to play for its paint on your lineup. And finally, number 6, Fighting Pair. In the current meta, it's usually best to have 2 weapons centered around fighting. Mint will be one of them in this case. And luckily, Mint is pretty good at working with whatever the other Slayer wants for its goals, and a lot of different playstyles can fit into this. Regardless though, you definitely want a pairing over a comp that might be too supportive or defensive, so look into other midline options and see what you enjoy playing with. With that said, let's jump back to Omega to see some examples of comps that work for it.
Thank you, Chara. The only type of comps that I would like to add are hide-and-seek comps. These are comps where you and your aggro duo look for sharking. You wait for your opponents to come to you by hiding and seeking. Your 2 other teammates should be playing for baiting the opponents into bad situations for them and painting the map for you. These are the general comps and weapons that I would like to run with Mint. The one thing I would like to point out is that Mint's best aggro duo is S-Blast or Slosher. I use a few advanced techniques that are very powerful, even when they're a bit niche. If you're in a dire scenario, Mint can flip the zone very quickly with a well-placed suction bomb and a bubble. With the only suction bomb bubble weapon in the game, you can lob your first suction bomb, place your big bubbler, then throw another suction bomb that lands at the same time as your first. This will make them both paint the zone at the same time. You can use this to get a needed penalty on your opponent. Crab headshots is a really weird technique, but it can be very important in big sets. If you're on equal ground, you can just aim parallel to your opponent's head. Otherwise, you can aim slightly upwards to hit their head. Decavitator can also break Crab Tank easily, so keep that in mind if you need to. Booyah Bomb glitching is where you hit the Booyah Bomb player on the way down after they throw their special. If you time it right, this can kill a full health player in one shot. I tend to aim around the time they start to land, so I can hit it. Weirdly enough, I've been feeling like the 80 damage hitbox works better on players that are in the same region as me, while the 40 damage hitbox is a lot more consistent against European players. This may have to do with latency. I'm not entirely sure. If you all remember my carbon guide, I did something similar to this, but I did it unscripted. I was doing the same thing with this guide until I realized there is too much for me to say. I scripted about 1,000 words. It's almost a third of the entire guide from just words, but I will still do some of this unscripted. I'm not sure why there aren't more Mint players in the scene. I'm the most prominent Mint player in North America, with a few others that come to mind like Dylan, who doesn't have as much time to play, and recently Kyo, who uses it as a counterpick weapon on some specific map modes. I was trying to figure out why. The main part is Mint is hard. I know top players recognize that every weapon is difficult, but it's hard to see when you look at the giant hitbox and go, Mint big hitbox equals easy. While the hitbox makes the mechanics forgiving, I believe Mint players are making 2 big mistakes on their mechanics in aim. The first is the dash slashing in. While you should look for opportunities to make a huge play for your team, a lot of the time, Mint players will just dash slash in when the opponents already know. I'm a victim of this too, and my lack of patience tends to be the reason why my team loses space. Dash slashing towards your opponent should be used with a grain of salt. It's an integral part to Mint's gameplay loop, but it can be equally detrimental. Look out for how often you dash slash backwards in a set to see if you're feeding too hard. The next is aiming on slopes and elevation. I mentioned it in the map mode section that Mint appreciates flat ground because of how forgiving its hitbox can be. You'll still need to aim vertically, but not as much on flat maps. It takes It takes practice like everything does, but I want to say please don't be discouraged when your aim feels roughed after hearing how broken Decavitator's hitbox is. While Decav's hitbox is extremely overpowered, even with these in mind, it can be difficult with elevation and slopes and falling from ledges. The next is a lack of understanding with its kit. Suction Bomb and Big Bubbler is closer to a support kit than an aggressive kit. It's because of the sluggishness of Suction Bomb. While you can still use it to trap and push your opponents out of places that you need them to be gone from, you can't deny the aggro presence of a Burst Bomb, Torpedo, or even Splat Bomb that can accomplish this over Suction Bomb. Suction Bomb is still an extremely broken sub-weapon though, and it creates an interesting contrast with Decavitator. While the weapon can be treated as a diving bomb that will just go in constantly, it's very easy to switch into a passive bomb spam and space holding style. It's something I did at times with Moonlight when we ran 10 to 96, and I still swap into this mode whenever I need to win sets over it, even when it's hard to see. Although I mentioned Bubble being supportive, Mint is a very lucky weapon. Many weapons that have Bubble tend to be supportive weapons outside of Slot Roller. The reason I find Mint most interesting as a mid-range aggro weapon is how many of the specials in the game work. S-Blast and Slosher both have special used to displace your opponent, but they tend to not be used in the middle of 1v1s or teamfights. On the other hand, Mint can start teamfights and sway the entire battle towards your favor on its own. I mostly mentioned S-Blast and Slosher because they are the most prominent midline weapons, but I wanted to point that out because they tend to be used as displacement tools, while Mint, another very prominent frontline weapon, can pop Bubble in that teamfight and just win off of that. It's not as similar as Hammer and Splashdown since they tend to be more inconsistent. And while you don't want to do 1v2s or 1v3s, it suddenly feels much easier with your own makeshift base, which Slosher and S-Plus can't do, even if it only lasts for 5 seconds when it's shredded. I'm not sure how to explain it well because I'm still learning this myself, so I hope watching my games and streams can help to get a better understanding by seeing what works and what doesn't from my point of view. My conclusion from all of this goes to how players play Mint as a 100% frontline, when I feel like it's more of a 70% frontline, 30% support. When players lean into the super frontline style of running it down and feeding, it can work. But the higher level players you fight, the less times W keying and dash slashing in will work. You don't want your success to depend on your opponent making a mistake. While your opponents can and will make mistakes, you can't let that be the sole reason you have success on Mint. Punish their mistakes when you see it, but you need to be able to find success without needing your opponents to miss. It's still something I'm working on. It's okay to freeze and throw bombs and farm your broken special, go into support mode for a second if you need. One other small point is players not playing around their team. For example, I used to play with 10 to 96 and Pen. When I played with Tent, I would Shark and Punish around Shadow. When I played with 96, we would use Overwhelming Force with our 40 damage and 62 damage combos to blow up the enemy team. Now I play with N-Zap, S-Blast, and E-Leader, and when I'm playing with S-Blast, it's still our Overwhelming Force, but now S-Blast fixes Mint's problems with the AoE. However, when I play with E-Leader, I can slow down and hold space. That way, she can take more shots. You should find teammates that can make your Mint stronger, but you need to be able to help your teammates to be strong. The way I helped 10 to 96 and S-Plus and E-Leader, it's a team game after all. I hope this guide helped you learn something new about Decavitator. It's good to use all the tools that I mentioned, and putting everything together should give you more success. I'll try to respond to every question in the comments, and thank you for watching.